already living in one of the top 10 most expensive cities, and new real estate rules could complicate the home buying process even more. A local expert will explain what has changed. Good Evening San Diego starts right now.
You're watching Good Evening San Diego.
The National Association of Realtors recently settled a case that could change the home buying process here in San Diego by the end of the summer. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about that lawsuit and the consequences for people trying to purchase property is Mark Powell. He's a licensed California real estate broker, also the president-elect for the San Diego Association of Realtors. Mark, good to see you once again. How are you?
Good, Logan. How you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. So let's talk about these new rules because it has to do with how much commission a real estate agent gets, right?
That's correct. So what happened was a lawsuit happened against the National Association of Realtors. They accused this group of people, was an antitrust lawsuit, accused the National Association of Realtors of artificially keeping commissions high. So you know when the market is really good, you can just put a sign in the front yard and sell it. They're saying that they kept it high. Well, the National Association of Realtors, they didn't admit guilt, but they said they would change their practices. And one of the changes is they will no longer do compensation from the listing agent. So what that means, Logan, it means that if, let's say you're going to sell your house and you say, Mark, sell my house, all right, 6%, 5%, I'm going to give half of my commission to the buyer's agent. Well, that's no longer allowed. So the buyer and the buyer's agent have to negotiate how the buyer's agent is going to get paid. So I might say, okay, if I help you get a house, you have to give me 2% of the sales price. I'm going to try to collect it from the seller, but if I can't get it from the seller, you're on the hook for the difference.
Do you think what might happen is the selling agent will just say, kind of in the listing, I'm willing to give 3% of my 6% to the buyer's agent, don't worry about it, and they just kind of get around that new rule?
Logan, I can tell you have some experience in buying homes because that's something that many buyers might opt to do, because if the buyer doesn't have the money to pay the buyer's agent, what are the options? They might go directly to the listing agent and say, hey, I really can't afford a buyer's agent. I want to work directly with you. Now that listing agent, that agent might say, well, we still have to have an agreement, because another rule is you have to have a contract between the buyer's agent and the and the buyer. So similar to when you're listing a house, you have a contract. Everybody has a contract, and in that contract, that's where those fees are being negotiated. So we thought the buying process was challenging in San Diego. You know, our homes are hovering around $900,000 for a median price home, and only about 11% of people living in San Diego can afford to buy a home, because you have to make around $220,000 or $240,000 a year just to qualify.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe a buyer will go and try to find the house on their own and then talk to the listing agent, the seller's agent, say, hey, listen, you know, you're going to be getting 6%. You'd normally give 3% to my agent. I don't have an agent. Why don't you give me the price for 3% lower than what it normally is? And everybody essentially makes out the same.
That sounds exactly like what might happen. Or the seller might say, I'm going to pay you 3%, and I'm not going to give anything to the buyer's side. Let them work out their details. So I'm off the hook for that other 3% or 2.5% or whatever that is. So it's going to make it a little bit mucky. It's August is when these new rules are going to set in, and I guess we're just going to have to work through it and see, you know, hopefully we don't disadvantage some people who can't afford to have that buyer's agent.
Yeah, can you imagine you want to buy a house and you can't afford to pay your agent, and now all of a sudden you're going up against people who can, and yeah.
It's not going to be a level. The tough thing, though, is also for VA buyers, because right now a VA loan, which is 100% financing, does not allow the VA buyer to pay any commissions. So they're trying to work all that stuff out too. We're going to see how this is going to pan out, but it's a paradigm shift, which means it's no longer business as usual. This is a completely different ballgame.
Do you think some people might try to buy the house if they're looking at it before August, so that they can kind of go to the normal, to the rules that they are now versus the new rules coming in?
Look, a lot of people are, and once again, you're correct, a lot of people are doing that. Let's get our house on the market now. Let's work through these things, because what offering that commission does is it incentivizes the agent to bring somebody in. But what you don't want to see happen is what they were talking about, is that realtors will look and say, okay, who's paying me the highest commission? Let's see these houses first and then work our way down. That's called steering, and that's part of this lawsuit.
Yeah.
They don't want realtors to steal, to steer.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, because they might say, hey, well, if I sell this house to my buyer, then I'll get a commission. If I sell that one, I won't. So why would I do that?
There you go.
All right, Mark, good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Mark Powell.